Good morning to you on this beautiful Thursday morning. It's the beginning of the second week of August now, thereabouts. So we're well into Lunasa, and what I wanted to show you today, because it's really very important that we come to understand what good permaculture leads to. And it's simply this: good permaculture leads to regenerative agriculture, regenerative horticulture, regenerative life. So it's about planting and initially doing that hard work of planting. Then it's about tending and observation all the time. Walking, enjoying and observing. Because as you observe, you begin to see what's thriving where, and how to take the entire plan forward. Now, as many of you know, I did not sit down and draw a plan in the initial stages. I kept everything very much in my head. I find that to be a very powerful tool in the project that I undertook 13 years ago. First of all, because I was on my own, and I needed to have that continual motivation, and keeping things in one's head allows a certain amount of regenerative creativity to start. So the very last images I would have in my head at night before I fell asleep would be of the land and what I'd planted, how it was growing, and the next stage or the next phase. So, regenerative permaculture. I've planted, well, I stopped counting at 1,000. There's probably 12 or 1,300 trees planted here now. I keep packing them in. And I planted layers. So if you look here, just looking at the back of the lodge here, there's layers going up as high now as 30 feet, somewhere like that, about 30 feet. And I've come to observe that if you want, for example, to plant trees close to your home, there is a way of keeping them in check so as they don't get too big, but you still have the tree. So if you look at this planting, I planted a field maple, you just see it there come out of the top of the bamboo, and then underneath I planted bamboo. So the bamboo and the rubus and the laurel and all the stuff planted around that tree keeps that tree fairly small, yet very vibrant and very healthy. So within that little polyculture there, just show you, you can just see the base of the tree and the bamboo and all the life around it. So within that little polyculture, there is first and foremost a little microclimate. It's very dry in there, as you can imagine. That encourages lots of life to go in there, so lots of insects and lots of small mammals, little birds as well. As they begin to encroach into the little polyculture, they bring with them lots of seeds. So unexpected plants begin to come up. And we'll just look a little bit more closely at this. quite a magical little space in there. If you look up behind it now, you see where all kinds of plants are coming up. And down in here, even up through the rubus, you can see little Michaelmas daisies. Montprecia down below here. A lot of cyclical plants as well. So you have Sweet Cicely. That's come in, dropped by the birds. And the Sweet Cicely, of course, has gone over now because that comes out round about March, April, May, and then it dies back. And then also within this little area, lots and lots of chop and drop. So within the chop and drop, you can now see there's an ash tree coming up. This is forsythia. Some nettles, little nettles coming up down there, and cleavers. And up close, it looks quite rough and ready. But when you come back and you look at the entire picture, it's actually, in terms of a garden, quite attractive and presentable. And yet within that there's a beautiful wildness. And if you look closely at the ash tree, you can see there's a climber growing up through it. That's Polygonum, or Russian vine. And that's flowering now. And then if you look just to the left here of the field maple and the bamboo, you can see Spirea just peeping up through the larch. Cornus alba sibirica, and coming down, Crocosmia, just in there, Cotoneaster, lots and lots of berries there for the birds. So there's an entire little world packed in there, and you can see now the webs are beginning to be spun. A beautiful feeding ground now for spiders and small insects. And of course then food for the birds, and so that beautiful cycle is continuing. And then this little space here at the back of the shed, ideal for tyres. So I've got 8 tyres in there in total, 4 double. And in there I have roses and Herb Robert, Hebes, Bay, Clematis. So there's edibles for me, edibles for the bees, edibles for the birds. And of course it takes the planting vertical. So you're using that little piece of space, which very few people actually think in terms of, well, you could create a garden there in the space of a couple of feet coming out at the back of the shed. But look how that works. Clematis there, and growing up from 2 tyres on that side. And the tyres are just brilliant planters, butted up against a wooden shed because of course they're not carrying moisture up along the wood. So we'll walk on round. And the regenerative agriculture continues all the way around here, and of course my own observation allows me to see that, you know, there's lots of birds in spaces like this, so I put little feeding trays down of water. You can see all the little ash trees coming up here, and ivy. London Pride, Aquilegia, Rubus, Valerian, and all the various species that's planted in front of the hedgerow to bring the hedgerow out. And the regeneration then continues. For example, this purple flowering plant is oregano, which I didn't plant in there. So birds have brought those seeds to this area, and of course the birds have come into this area because of the cotoneaster that I planted, so they come in to feed on those berries and they bring seeds with them. There's a lovely bee there, look. So the birds have brought the seeds of the oregano in, and thus bringing the bees in. You've got a similar thing here, and these are tiny, tiny little spaces with hardly any soil in them. I just add a little bit of compost every now and again. And the same along here. You've got a lot of regenerative growing. So the Bealtaine, didn't put that in there. A little birch tree, I didn't put that in there either. All the various plants that come up in the gravel. And back there. And when you have different areas for different plants, so you have gravel here, that will attract lots of seeds like the sedums, and you can see where the sedums are spreading. And there's some more Bealtaine. And of course the regeneration, this is how it works here. So this is Oxide Daisies. And of course the birds will come and shake those around, and the wind will shake those around, and they spread. And wherever you have an edge, you have of course this wonderful capacity for the fertile edge, where lots and lots of seeds and plants begin to just sprout and grow. Now this is quite interesting here in the gravel. These are parsnips growing in the gravel. They make wonderful flowers, don't they? And these parsnips have been spread in here. Because wherever you let, you allow plants to go to seed, that's where a lot of the natural fertility begins to grow from. We'll just go through here. Of course, Bealtaine Cottage covers 3 acres, And if I was to do a walk around the 3 acres in totality, it would take me about an hour and a half, and that would be moving fairly quickly. So I can only ever show you small bits at any given time when it comes to doing a video. So let's look in here. I do a lot of chopping and dropping, and when I'm clearing up areas, I throw all the garden waste, all the biodegradable stuff, just under trees or wherever I can find a place where they're not going to be in the way. So under trees, of course, is a great place to throw, chop and drop. And when you do that, initially you're creating habitat, and then as the woody bits begin to rot down, you've got the potential for mushrooms coming up there, but then you've also got a clear space as it biodegrades. And then of course seeds are brought in, and so you get all kinds of plants growing, depending on what you have growing on your site to begin with. So for example, here we go, lots of mushrooms there, you can see. And above that, quite a stack of bamboo, young bamboo that I was cutting out from the plantation, and I threw down there. So, Jack's going a bit crazy. So, you're continually allowing nature to multiply, because that's what regeneration's all about. It's about facilitating Mother Earth and what she wants to do. All she wants to do is multiply and give and give and give. All we seem to want to do is stop her. But when you get to the point where you make peace with her, then proper regeneration can take place. Jack is going mad. So, sorry, I was just waiting to see if he's going to come bounding through there. No, something stopped him. Okay. So if we look up here, oh, no, here he comes. If we look up here, we can see lots and lots of berries. And this is the cotoneaster that I give a bit of a pruning to in the late winter, early spring, and it really has benefited the bush. Now this is the mother plant to all the upright cotoneasters in the garden, and I see more and more of these little plants springing up, and obviously where the birds have, you know, taken a berry and gone and sat on another tree, and then what they poop out usually has the seeds or some of the seeds still intact, and that's how that lovely regeneration starts to happen. So we'll just go through this way. So when you get to the point of this incredible abundance, the regeneration is the actual gardener. All you are is the caretaker. And in caretaking, then it behoves me to go in and prune the apple trees. My word, there's a beautiful apple there. To manage stuff like the raspberry to ensure that the ground cover that benefits everything best is maintained and cared for. So I love this geranium ground cover because the bees and pollinators love that. And the regenerative agriculture, of course, then takes into consideration very much the compost toilet. That's an important part of it. So everything that I prune back that is suitable for putting through the garden shredder, that's what I do. And then I use the shreddings in my compost loo. So the regeneration then continues. And again, you're looking to pack in as many species as possible to begin with, and then allow that regeneration to take over. So for example, a little bit of mulching down there, where I was finishing off the Lunacy garden and planted in, you can just see there, planted in this beautiful Cotoneaster, and I've just shown you the mother tree, the mother plant, and the Pyracantha. So there's a massive amount of chop and drop potential going on there, and that's my role as caretaker then, to go in and facilitate that. And here you can see the no-dig method, which again is an essential part of the regenerative planning and planting and nurturing that you want to do. And you can see within that beautiful area, you've got plants coming up through that mulching. Now some of those plants I don't want, some of them I do want. So I think that's Globe Artichoke coming up over there. So I'm going to let that go, free rein. Got a little bit of Aquilegia coming up down there, and Herb Robert. They're welcome, I'm going to leave those in. So I'll go through this bed in about a month's time, and I will be pulling up stuff that I don't want. I'll be putting down a second layer of mulch, and just around the plants then that I do want. And this time next year then this bed should be well and truly covered and shaded and growing the way it was planned to grow. Lots of black currants in there, and I've grown those from seed. So back down here, you can see there's this mallow has come up through the mulch. That's fine. There's also what looks like a jostaberry has come up through the mulch, and that's fine too. There's a raspberry over there. Not too sure if I'll leave that one in because I have enough raspberries in the garden. But the way that you garden then, the way that you grow, the way that you farm becomes much more in keeping with and at the same pace as Mother Earth. Let her lead and let us follow. So it's taken a few years to get plants in here that I wanted to keep. So for example, I've got some Crocosmia there, I've got some raspberry, I've got sedum, there's some lovely oregano coming up. Now some of the raspberries I'll take out. I need to keep the paths open. And you can see in there's a nice space around the tree where I've thrown mulch in the early spring. That's just chop and drop. And looking back along this path, you can see where regeneration has happened. So you've got several different kinds of nasturtiums coming up there. Well, I haven't sown any nasturtium seeds in this area. In fact, I haven't sown any at all this year. There's oregano, there's golden oregano, and sedum, and raspberry, black currant, more oregano, in fact lots of that. That's a beautiful cover. Down here there's some rocket coming up through it. This is the rudbeckia that I've grown from seed this year, and down there there's some cotoneaster. It's even got a few little berries on it. There's some flowers there that I don't even recognise. Oh, I know this one. This is Jacob's Ladder. So those seeds are spreading around the garden beautifully. And then over here, just been clearing this bed here. This was filled with mint. This is another cotoneaster that was grown from seed. Because sometimes I don't wait on the birds, I just take the seeds and I will plant them, sow them and grow them. So this here is the compost heap, and you can see those nasturtiums just keep coming. And you can see what I have on the compost heap. So there's all kinds of stuff. There's cardboard. Look at that, there's dog hair from the Hoover, tomato, aquilegia, nasturtium, celery, lots and lots of celery seed in there as well, lettuce and astrantia and feverfew and stock, and just so much stuff going on in there. So when it comes to spreading that, then there'll be a massive amount of seeds in with it. Some of the seeds I don't want, but many of the seeds I do. And like I say, if you see yourself as being in the caretaking capacity at this point, after 13 years, then all you're doing is just sort of conducting the show. We'll just walk down along here. This is just a very small piece of the gardens. But you can see there's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of abundance and complexity already in the gardens. And also within the path system. And whatever I mow, of course, goes back onto the land. And down here, got some beautiful little sloes coming out there. And this is my compost bin area. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 bins filled this year. That's the 8th. So it's more or less month by month. And that's the 8th one now, which is being filled. And now within this once very barren area, you can see an absolute massive regeneration, because a lot of this I just did not plant. Like I didn't plant the ferns, and there were no ferns here 13 years ago. There were no ferns on this site at all. So you've got the lovely copper beech. There's some fruit trees in there. There's willow, which is really benefiting from any runoff from the compost bins, because of course the compost bins have holes drilled in the bottom for allowing the drainage of urine from the bins. And urine, of course, is a wonderful, absolutely wonderful food for all plants. So you've got this willow happening here. You have some beautiful ivy, and that's covered with berries then during the winter. little spirea hedge.